This is Giordano Bruno. He dared to challenge the conventional wisdom of his time, declaring that we are not the center of the universe, but belong to an infinite space. Why? Because a man from the 1st century, named Lucretius, in his book on the nature of things, gave Bruno a staggering example of the vastness of space. But this tale takes a dark twist. For his revolutionary beliefs, Bruno paid the ultimate price. He was burned alive in the middle of the street. Let's look at the full story. In the context of the cosmos, we are small. We might just be little beings living on a speck of dust, adrift in an overwhelming vastness. But we don't think small. This cosmic perspective is relatively new. Only 4 centuries ago, our tiny world was oblivious to the rest of the cosmos. There were no telescopes, and the universe was limited to what you could see with the naked eye. Back in 1599, everyone believed that the sun, planets, and stars were merely lights in the sky, revolving around the Earth, with us at the center of a small universe, seemingly made just for us. There comes a time in our lives when we first realize we're not the center of the universe, that we belong to something much greater than ourselves. It's part of growing up, and as it happened to each of us, it began to happen to our civilization in the 16th century. Imagine a world before telescopes, when the universe was limited to what you could see with the naked eye. It was obvious that Earth was motionless and everything in the heavens, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets revolved around us. And then, a Polish astronomer and priest named Nicolaus Copernicus made a revolutionary proposal in the 16th century. Copernicus's heliocentric model, which placed the sun at the center of the solar system with the Earth and other planets orbiting it, challenged the prevailing geocentric view, where Earth was considered the center of the universe. This new cosmological model was met with resistance and skepticism, not only from the Catholic Church, but also from figures like Martin Luther, who saw it as contradicting religious teachings. They were horrified, but for one man, Copernicus didn't go far enough. His name was Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno was born in Nola, a town in southern Italy, in 1548. His father's name was Giovanni Bruno, and his mother's name is believed to have been Fraulissa Savellino. During his childhood and early education, Bruno entered the Dominican order at a young age, likely in his teenage years. This was a common path for many young boys in Italy at the time. As a member of the Dominican order, he took the name Giordano in honor of his patron saint, Giordano degli Alberini. His education followed the traditional scholastic curriculum, which included theology, philosophy, and the works of ancient philosophers. He was a natural-born rebel, always eager to break free from the confined universe of his time. Even as a young Dominican monk in Naples, he was a misfit. During a time when there was no freedom of thought in Italy, Bruno thirsted for knowledge about God's creation and dared to read the books banned by the Church. One of these books, by an ancient Roman poet and philosopher named Lucretius, explored Epicurean philosophy, emphasizing atoms and natural processes. Lucretius's work advocated for tranquility and freedom from pain as life's goals. His engaging style and ideas influenced later thought. Lucretius whispered to Bruno of a universe far greater, as boundless as his idea of God. Lucretius asked the reader to imagine standing at the edge of the universe and shooting an arrow outward. If the arrow keeps going, then clearly the universe extends beyond what you thought was the edge. But if the arrow doesn't keep going, say it hits a wall, then that wall must lie beyond what you thought was the edge of the universe. Now, if you stand on that wall and shoot another arrow, there are only the same 2 possible outcomes. It either flies forever out into space, or it hits some boundary where you can stand and shoot yet another arrow. Either way, the universe is unbounded, and the cosmos must be infinite. This concept made perfect sense to Bruno, as the God he worshipped was infinite. Therefore, how could creation be anything less? Due to his heliocentric beliefs, it was unlikely that academic institutions relying on church funding would hire someone with such controversial views. Bruno's unorthodox ideas made him an outcast in academic circles, and getting a formal job teaching astronomy or philosophy was challenging because universities and schools did not want to be associated with someone who challenged the accepted teachings of the church. When he was 30, he had a vision that sealed his fate. In this dream, he awakened to a world enclosed inside a confining body, much like a bowl of stars, representing the cosmos of Bruno's time. He experienced a moment of fear, as if the bottom of everything was falling away beneath his feet, but he summoned up his courage. Bruno's vision of the cosmos revealed an unbounded space, escorted by other Earths like our own. The revelation of this immensity was like falling in love. Bruno became an evangelist, spreading the gospel of infinity throughout Europe, assuming that other lovers of God would embrace this grander and more glorious view of creation. However, he was excommunicated by the Roman Catholic Church in his homeland, expelled by the Calvinists in Switzerland, and by the Lutherans in Germany. Bruno jumped at an invitation to lecture at Oxford in England, hoping to share his vision with an audience of his peers. In his speech, he said,
"I have come to present a new vision of the cosmos. Copernicus was right to argue that our world is not the center of the universe. The Earth goes around the sun. It's a planet just like the others. But Copernicus was only the dawn. I bring you the sunrise. The stars are other fiery suns made of the same substance as the Earth, and they have their own watery Earths, with plants and animals no less noble than our own."
Nevertheless, no one accepted Bruno's vision of heliocentric belief, and because of his opposing beliefs, he faced tremendous backlash. A wiser man would have learned his lesson, but Bruno couldn't keep his soaring vision of the cosmos to himself, despite the fact that the penalty for doing so in his world was the most vicious form of cruel and unusual punishment. Giordano Bruno lived at a time when there was no such thing as the separation of church and state, or the notion that freedom of speech was a sacred right of every individual. Expressing an idea that didn't conform to traditional belief could land you in deep trouble. Recklessly, Bruno returned to Italy, knowing that his homeland was one of the most dangerous places in Europe. The Roman Catholic Church maintained a system of courts known as the Inquisition, whose sole purpose was to investigate and torment anyone who dared voice views that differed from theirs. It wasn't long before Bruno fell into the clutches of the thought police. This wanderer, who worshipped an infinite universe, languished in confinement for 8 years. Through relentless interrogations, he stubbornly refused to renounce his views. Why was the church willing to go to such lengths? To torment Bruno? What were they afraid of? If Bruno was right, then the sacred books and the authority of the church would be open to question. Finally, the cardinals of the Inquisition rendered their verdict and said,
"You are found guilty of asserting the existence of other worlds. All of the books you have written will be gathered up and burned in St. Peter's Square with you.
10 years after Bruno's martyrdom, Galileo first looked through a telescope, realizing that Bruno had been right all along. The Milky Way was made of countless stars invisible to the naked eye, and some of those lights in the sky were actually other worlds. Bruno was no scientist. His vision of the cosmos was a lucky guess, as he had no evidence to support it. Like most guesses, it could well have turned out wrong. But once the idea was in the air, it gave others a target to aim at, if only to disprove it. Bruno glimpsed the vastness of space, but he had no inkling of the staggering immensity of time. How can we humans, who rarely live more than a century, hope to grasp the vast expanse of time that is the history of the cosmos?